Welcome to Lawyers Without Billboards, where we break down family law and other areas of the law. No gimmicks, no legal jargon, just real, unfiltered talk from real lawyers. Join your hosts, Steve, Patty, Jimmy, and Alexa, partners at Shewmaker Lewis, a law firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. Every episode, they tackle the legal questions that matter most: divorce, custody, child support, alimony, and everything in between. They'll pull back the curtain to give you real insights on what happens inside the courtroom and beyond.
Welcome back to Lawyers Without Billboards. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Patty Shewmaker, along with Steve Shewmaker, Jimmy and Alexa Lewis.
And Addie's here, too.
And Adeline, the cat, with her valuable insight into family law matters. Anybody got a topic today, or are we just going to wing it?
I think Jimmy's got something.
We are going to talk about basically being friends with other attorneys, being friends with opposing counsel, because this is something that happens pretty frequently. You know, as many attorneys as there are out there, we have very good relationships with a lot of them. And I have had clients say to me in the past, hey, is that a good thing or a bad thing that you are friends with my wife's attorney or with my husband's attorney?
Well, friends, that's a pretty broad term. I mean, there's a spectrum of friendships.
It usually starts with the client saying, do you know this attorney? And you're not going to lie to your client. You're going to say, yes, I do know this attorney, you know, and you might offer, you know, we're friends.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, is that, or the client might say, my husband says he's friends, or his attorney's friends with yours. And how do you handle that?
Well, I think ultimately, I think it's a good thing if, you know, whether you're actually friends or whether you are friendly and can have a good conversation with
a good working relationship.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you can have a good conversation and a good working relationship and be able to productively talk about things with that other attorney, I think that the case is frankly going to be a heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
It's kind of like go ahead.
No, you were.
It's kind of like the corollary. You know, when I'm on the phone with somebody and they call about a case, I'm like, okay, has a case been filed? And they say, yeah, uh-huh. And I said, so your husband has an attorney? And they say, yeah. And I say, who's the attorney? And they say, you know, Jane Smith. And I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, what does that mean? I was like, that person's a real pill. Your case is going to cost more money. It's going to be expensive. Why? Well, because that attorney is difficult. That attorney is overly litigious. So it's kind of the corollary. You know, I'll tell a client, yeah, I know this person. I've known him a long time or her a long time. That's actually helpful to you because I know this attorney. We're on good terms. We can get along without any bullshit or ego or anything getting in the way.
I mean, it helps. It can help, you know, move cases toward resolution, right? Because it's really what we do. You know, is you have a dispute. You know, you want a divorce. It's a dispute, and you know, it's not really about justice. It's about resolution. And if we can get you to resolution, you know, effectively, you know, which doesn't necessarily mean fast, it means, you know, representing your interests and efficiently, then that benefits both sides. And usually when you have a good working relationship with the opposing counsel, you can do that.
Now, have you guys had cases with attorneys who you have very good working relationships with or even friends with that you still had to go to trial on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you know, the answer to your question is yes. I've also had cases where I didn't know the other attorney, and as a result of going to trial, we became very good friends, you know. Lifelong friends in some cases.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
it's fun almost, and I know, you know, people don't want to necessarily hear that, but it's fun almost when you have a case that you're trying, and you like your client, you like opposing counsel, and you like the judge. You know, it's like the trifecta. You know, and you're like, oh, it's going to be a good day. Don't know that, you know, we're going to win, and it's not really, you know, it's not winning; it's degrees of losing, right? But it's a good day because you can put up the case and everybody's professional and it's just that's when practicing law is fun. Now, you got the flip side of that, which is the negative trifecta, where you don't like a client, you don't like opposing counsel, and you don't like the judge.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's just going to be a long, miserable day. And I hope you pack triple snacks.
Like the client I had recently, where he's in my office just whining about some stuff, and I'm like, I can't believe how you just didn't follow my advice at all, and you've made this 10 times worse. And Bonnie, our associate's there, and I start drawing something. She's like, what are you drawing? I'm like, this is the taco truck that I wish I owned. I wish I could be selling tacos right now and had a different career than dealing with your dumb ass. It's actually on the bulletin board in our kitchen. But Anyway, let me ask you this question, Jimmy, because let's talk about the other side of this. You're friends with the other attorney and y'all get along. Does that mean in court you should be friendly and chummy?
When appropriate.
Tell me more about that.
Okay, so here, for example, we just had a week-long jury trial. Charles Medlin's on the other side. He and I get along extremely well. And here, even a couple years ago, you and I had a jury trial. Justin Hayes is on the other side.
Justin over in Decatur, good guy.
Yeah,
Good
we
guy.
play golf with Justin.
Yeah.
And so
Smoke cigars.
Yeah, and so a lot of times, outside of the presence of the jury, we are sitting there kind of chumming it up, joking around.
But our clients see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had some clients who they like the fact that get along well with opposing counsel, and some are like, why are you friends with them?
So
are you in cahoots with them?
Right.
Like,
So you kind of have to read your client. And I'll often talk to my client and say, look, I'm friends with so-and-so. You know, we may, in court, we may be getting along, having a good time, joking around, smiling. But you do have to be, and so you have to read your client. And if the other attorney is being kind of cold to you, maybe he read his client and knows that he can't do that. So you have to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a case like that, Alexa?
Absolutely, and I've definitely had the client say, I'm concerned because you have a good relationship with the other attorney, and that's when you have that conversation of, no, it's actually a good thing because we can do X, Y, and Z. To go to your point, though, when you don't really know another attorney and you get to try a case with them or you're working closely with them, I actually recently resolved a case on a temporary basis with Katrina Williams. I've never worked with her before. We didn't exactly get off on the greatest foot because there were some discovery disputes, but her and I had some great conversations, and we're scheduled to have dinner soon.
You know, that's great. And that's really one of the joys of the profession for us is when you can become friends with the other attorney. You know, Jimmy and I recently went canoeing with Steve Riley over in Lawrenceville. Steve and I had a case together and just love the guy. And although it's criminal and not domestic, David McLaughlin down in Troup County is a great guy. We had a criminal case together and became, really fast friends. That's a real benefit that I'm really happy about. But when that happens, you've got to be careful and make sure that your client knows you're not selling them out.
Right.
Because you're friendly with the other side.
Right, and that's a balance of being friendly but still being professional.
Well, and still advocating.
Yeah, and don't be, understand that your client is watching, and be friendly. Don't be too chummy. Don't be overboard. Not in front of your client.
Right.
That's not. They should be the focus.
Well, and I had another really good example. I had a case with Will Davis. You guys know Will Davis the other day. And
Will's a cool guy.
We were in court.
Yeah.
It was kind of the trifecta. We had a great judge. We had a great time. It was a really difficult, heavily litigated case that we had. I mean, the parties really don't like each other. We didn't get any lunch breaks. A good thing I had snacks. But it was on Zoom too, which was crazy. But at the end of the case, like he and I were chatting, and it's offline about how we really enjoyed doing the case together. He actually made a really very nice Facebook post about it, which worked to my favor because he's friends with a judge I was in front of a couple days later that I wasn't familiar with, and the judge had a really good impression of me because of what Will had posted.
Long time before the two of you joined the firm, before we formed this firm, I litigated a custody case out in Augusta, Georgia, that I just knew I was going to lose. I didn't lose it just by the skin of my teeth. It was an amazing victory pulled out at the last minute. But I litigated it against John Taylor, who's now a United States Army civilian attorney. But John was in private practice after he left the active duty Army. And I enjoyed John in court so much because his style and mine were so similar that I honestly felt like I was litigating against myself, like in the mirror or something. And I enjoyed him so much. And I won the case, a custody case. It was binary. Someone was going to get the kid, and I won, and I just couldn't believe it. And we walked out of the courthouse, and he's like, you won, congratulations. I can't believe it. And I said, buddy, neither can I. Almost wanted to hug the guy. And we kept in touch after that. Never had another case together, but he refers cases to me. And every time I'm out at Fort Eisenhower now, I drop in on him. He's a good guy. And that's the real beauty. But let me kind of turn the topic a little bit. What if, Jimmy, you have another attorney that you like, maybe you've known and you're good friends, but either your client is really demanding or the other party is just an asshole, and you have to write that nasty letter. Do you write that letter? Do you write that letter and warn them? What do you do?
I have in certain, a lot of times when you have a case where you are on good terms with opposing counsel, you can pick up the phone and have these conversations. And I have on multiple occasions told opposing counsel that I'm friends with or have very good working relationships with, hey, you're about to get a nasty gram.
Yep.
Perfect. That's what I would do.
Yep.
I've done it. I've been the recipient of it. I've had people call me and say, hey, Steve, I'm about to send you a nasty letter. I kind of don't have a choice because your client's either nasty or my client's expecting it. And I'm usually like, I appreciate the call, man.
Yep. Yep.
Look forward to reading it.
You hate to get the one out of nowhere, though. You hate to get the nasty gram out of nowhere, and you're like, where's this coming from?
Right.
Why did I get a
Especially
warning?
if the attorney's a friend of yours.
Yeah.
And then you pick up the phone and like, are you not my friend no more?
Right.
Don't you like me?
What happened?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's good. What else you got? Any other pointers on when you're friends with the attorney?
No, I mean, y'all have any fun stories about anything in court that?
What if you know the judge or you're friendly with the judge?
I think it's a good thing.
I mean,
hurts.
I think it is a good thing as to the judge may know you, but I mean, don't expect that something's going to go your way just because you know the judge.
Right.
A lot of times clients ask you, do you know the judge?
Yeah.
Have you been in front of the judge?
Yeah.
And listen, there's some judges out there that I'm legit friends with, like have hung out with socially. And I'll tell clients, yeah, I know this judge. I may have served in the military with this judge. I may have had this judge over for my house for dinner. But don't expect you're going to get the case go your way. What I'm going to get is fairness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, because I've had this situation come up where the client comes to you and says, well, I know the judge.
I've had that situation come up.
How do you handle?
Well, I think it depends on the degree of how well they know the judge, right?
Sure.
So if it's I know them in passing or they live in our neighborhood and our neighborhood has a bajillion houses, okay, good for you. Like you tangentially know the judge. But I actually have a case right now where I had to recuse the entire bench down in Muskogee County or I guess Harris County.
That's still going on?
Well, yeah, but because my client's father-in-law is a juvenile court judge. So they know the judge.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, I had one not that long ago that immediately when because this was in Fulton when had rolled over to a different judge because one was coming off for the family division, and my client goes, "Hey, I know that guy," and then it wasn't 10 minutes later before we had a recusal that they had done it themselves.
The judge.
That's a judge or
Hey, Phil.
Hello. How you doing?
I didn't know Phil was coming today.
Yeah. Nobody knows that my wife is 30 years younger
Addie
than
didn't
me.
know Phil was
Phil
coming.
McCurdy.
We all know.
All right. Is that it? Is that a wrap?
Yeah, the point is, don't be concerned if your attorney is friends with opposing counsel, because sometimes that can help you get to resolution without it costing you as much money as the flip side, which is where the attorneys don't get along, and that definitely will cost you more money when it becomes a personal issue between
Absolutely.
the attorneys.
Big time. And if you're ever in doubt, just call your attorney and say, hey, this is something that concerns me. Let's talk about it. All right, without further ado, this is Shewmaker and Lewis, Alexa, Jimmy, Patty, and Steve, Lawyers Without Billboards. Peace out, y'all.
That's it for this episode of Lawyers Without Billboards. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to follow and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources or to get in touch with us, visit shewmakerandlewis.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.